I used to believe that fear was the opposite of faith, that if you felt fear, there was no faith in your life. I used to believe that if you felt hesitation, if you felt doubt, if you felt any type of anxiety or worry, that just wasn't faith. I used to believe that faith had to be absolute, 100% confident, 100% determined, 100% just completely believing that whatever you're hoping for and whatever you're believing in will come to pass, or will happen, or the miracle will happen, or whatever you're believing for will manifest itself. But yet, that's just not true. We have made people feel horrible and bad. We have made people feel like outcasts because they have fear and anxiety. There's a church out there. There are people out there that exhort a message telling others that if you feel fear, God's not with you. That if you feel afraid, you're not with God. That if you feel anxiety, that you feel any worry, concern, hesitation, doubt, that you are just not a Christian. You're just not a believer. You're just not someone that walks with God or walks with Christ. And that's just all false. That is baloney. The truth is, faith is about trust. And trusting someone can be very hard for two reasons. Number one, maybe it's someone you don't know. You don't know their character. You don't know who they are. And that can make you hesitate on trusting them. You don't know if what they're saying is true. You don't know if their intentions are good or bad. So you hesitate on trusting someone at their word. The second thing is what they're asking for, because maybe you do trust somebody. Maybe you do trust someone's character. Maybe you do know them. But what if they ask you for something? Ask you to do something, to believe for something that just seems outright crazy? What if someone is asking you to believe in something that seems nearly impossible? So it could be either one or the other. It could be both. Because if someone that I don't know tells me, oh, hey, here's a coffee. I bought you this coffee. A random stranger says, oh, I bought this coffee, but I didn't want to drink it anymore, or I didn't sip it. I promise. Here, do you want this coffee? I would be hesitant. It's not that he's asking me for something crazy. He's not offering me something weird or absurd, but I just don't know. Did you poison my coffee? Did you spit in my coffee? What'd you do? And some people may say, well, Eli, you're a bit cynical. Well, I also think I can be a little bit wise. Who knows? The funny thing about wisdom and, being a cynic, someone that doubts and everything, they doubt everyone's intentions. They believe everyone's intentions can be really bad or evil, is a very thin line between wisdom and being a wise person and being a cynic. But that's for another day. But the example here is that I don't know this man's character, this person's character, and they're asking me to do something normal. So even though the request or the offer is very simple, not something extraordinary or something that's very crazy or out of bounds, so simple, normal, coffee. I don't even like coffee anyways. I don't trust this person. I don't trust them because I don't know them. I don't know who they are. And so I'm not going to trust them. But then there can be someone that I trust, like my own mother, right? You trust your mom, right? I hope so. And my mom can then say, oh, hey, I need you to earn $1 million this year. Let's just say my mom was that type of person, right? Not really, but I would say, okay, well, I don't know if I can do that, and she says, we're going to work on it together. We'll do it together. We'll believe for it together. We'll work on it. And I go, well, I just don't believe that can happen. I believe in you. I believe you have good intentions. I know you love me. You're my mom, but I just don't think that's possible. And so doubt can come in many forms. It can come from the lack of relationship or knowledge or understanding of someone's character, but it also can come from our unbelief in the possibility of something being able to occur, for something being able to happen, for something, believing that something can happen. Many of us walk in doubt. Many of us walk in fear. according to the circumstances that we've lived through. That's very true. I've seen people, I know people that they believe in anything at any time, at any moment. And I've met their parents, and their parents are the same way. But I've also met people that believe in anything and everything, but yet their parents are afraid and they don't try and believe for anything. So I'm not saying that how you were raised is an automatic definition of who you are, but it is possible that we can be a result, a fruit of the root of our parents or of our family or whoever raised us or whatever relationships we developed along the way. Even friendships can have an influence over our lives. And so many people replicate and duplicate what they were raised in. That's just the truth. Some people despise where they came from. They despise how they were raised. They despise the culture and mannerisms that they were surrounded by. And therefore, they worked hard to become the opposite. That's possible too. But in most cases, the most probable case, which is sad but true, is that many people become a duplicate, a fruit of the atmosphere and ambience and household that they came from the relationships that they have. There's a quote that goes around. They always, I think they always quote it to Warren Buffett, but maybe it's a different person. And they say something along the lines of, show me the 5 people that are around you, or show me your 5 closest friends. Show me the 5 people you listen to the most, that you learn from, whatever. Show me your 5 closest people. Show me the people in your circle, in your friendship group, and I'll tell you who you are. That'll show me who you are. Our relationships have a lot of influence over our lives. If you grew up with family members that said, hey, don't dream, don't believe, just stick to the normal, stick to the common. And a optimistic side and a positive view that comes off as someone who is safe, secure, and that's not bad. It's good to be wise. It's good to hesitate at times. Hesitation is part of our survival skills. If we just said, yeah, okay, and believed everything and everyone and just jumped towards everything that was in front of us, none of us would be alive. A lot of us would just be harmed or damaged or even dead. So hesitation isn't bad. But hesitation isn't the same as fear. Hesitation gives you the time to analyze, to look at what's in front of you, and then make the determination whether to go ahead or to stay back. But if you grew up with someone that told you, no matter what the circumstances, don't take risk, you're going to be someone that's filled with doubt in many moments of your life. You're going to be someone that's going to walk in fear most of your life. Some people don't teach you to analyze the situation. They just teach you to assume that something will go bad because it can go bad. Just because something can go bad doesn't mean that it will go bad. But so many of us are we're strangled. We're caught in this trap of fear because we love to be comfortable. We love to feel good. This is the dilemma that us human beings have. We are attracted and we are addicted to pleasure. Pleasure can be horrible things, horrible vices like pornography, alcohol, partying all the time, wasting your time, eating junk food all the time. But also, we can get lost in living in fear. We can get lost in our doubts. We can get lost in so many. We could get lost staying in the same place, being stuck, because we are addicted to being comfortable. We're addicted to our bed. We're addicted to our home. We're addicted to feeling safe and feeling good. And some people are very, very addicted to feeling safe and feeling good, because they probably grew up in a world where everything was disorganized, things were inconsistent, things were always random. Because whenever you feel like you are just addicted to isolating yourself from people and you want peace 24/7, I know how that feels, because I'm an introvert. I'm a massive introvert. I love talking to people. I love meeting people, because an introvert doesn't mean that you hate having extroverted moments. An introvert just simply means that you feel more energized, you feel restored and replenished, you feel rested in places where you are able to isolate yourself from the world and just have me time. While an extrovert feels more alive and fueled again and great again by going out and talking to people, which both have their goods. But it can be dangerous when you just close yourself up and lock yourself up and you say, I'm not going to change anything, I'm not going to do anything. And that can often happen with people that grew up in a very disorganized and inconsistent life. People that grew up with always moving house to house, always never living consistently in the same place. Maybe they grew up with a mother or a father that they were always hesitant and afraid about the mood that they were going to have. You came home from school and you just didn't know what mood your dad was going to be in. You didn't know if he was going to be happy, sad, angry. You didn't know what mood your siblings, your parents were going to be in. And so you learned how to read the room, but not to your advantage, but you learned how to stifle yourself, to silence yourself, to become what other people and other things wanted you to become in order to maintain an atmosphere of peace. And there's something that's called flight or fight mode. And flight means to run away. Fight means to face it. When you feel like something is confronting you, when you feel endangered, what do? Few people choose to fight. And when I say fight, I'm not talking about a very barbaric way where you have to be aggressive and all this other stuff. No. Fighting can be as simple as speaking up, placing boundaries, not settling for less. But yet, flight, running away, doesn't mean you just ran away from the house or you ran away from the people. Flight means that you ran away from yourself. You ran away from who you are to be what others wanted you to be, because you just hate confrontation. You hate friction. You hate when there's a problem. You hate when issues are surfacing up. You just don't want to deal with it. You're the type of person that when you are in a relationship, in a friendship, in a dynamic with someone at work or at home, and you start realizing that the relationship is getting a bit bumpy, it's getting a little bit hard, there's some disagreements, there's some moments that you're not seeing eye to eye, and you start feeling this friction, you start feeling this disagreement, you start feeling like there's trouble in paradise. And instead of persevering and saying, let's work this out, let's figure this out, let's see this way through, let's believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, you become an avoidant, and all you want to do is disappear. All you want to do is break up with them. All you want to do is run away from your house. All you want to do is leave that church. All you want to do is give up. The reason why you give up is because you hate friction. You hate when things don't go according to your plans. You hate when things aren't smooth. People that often have a problem with controlling everything are people that try to create their own peace. Most control freaks are people that are just addicted to peace, their version of peace. They are willing to move and change everybody and make everything and everyone according to their desires, because they feel peace that way. They feel peace when they're in control. The greatest people that manipulate and people that love to control other people, are people that don't know how to have faith in God to have control of their future. People that try to control everything don't trust God. People that try to control people don't trust God. People that are trying to create their own peace 24/7 by manipulating people don't trust God. If you have to control someone in order to feel peace, you're not trusting in God. If you have to manipulate people or manipulate a situation in order for you to feel peace, you're not trusting in God. Most people that are control freaks, people that want control over everything and everyone, the truth is they are trying to create their own world of peace because they don't believe that God can give them peace. A lot of people become control freaks and manipulators because they do not like the narrative going in an opposite direction according to the desires that they have. They're too prideful to admit that when things are not going the way they want, when things aren't going the way they intended, when things aren't working out how they want, they are too prideful to admit that they are quitters. Because the truth is that faith is not necessarily the strength to control things or move things. No, strength is the ability to resist and move forward in spite of the circumstances that are not according to your favor. That is what faith is. When you don't walk by faith, you're trying to walk by control. Faith is to trust in God. Control is to trust in yourself. And that's why you become a control freak. You become a manipulator. You try to control everything and everyone around you because you do not have faith. You don't believe in God. You don't trust in God. You believe in yourself and you trust in yourself, and you're willing to hurt people or even hurt yourself by trying to create peace because you lived in a life that was disorganized. You lived in a life that was always out of place. And so because things were out of order and out of place all the time, all you desire is to have stability, consistency, and nothing is wrong with that. But there is always a danger in anything and everything to have an excess, too much, to have a form of gluttony in some sort of way with something. Water is the most precious liquid that we could drink. We are 70% water, according to science. And we need water in the morning, in the evening, at night, whether sitting or chilling or exercising, we need water. But it is proven that after we drink a certain amount of water, perhaps consistently throughout a day or just all at once, that there is such thing as too much water. There is such thing as an excess amount of water that can even kill you. But yet water is so healthy. Water is what we need. But yet if you take things too far without balance, then you are living in a form of an abuse. You are abusing something. You are abusing that water because you're drinking too much more than what you need. And having control over your life is something that you need. But trying to control every second of your life is not healthy. Trying to control every relationship in your life is not healthy. Trying to control people is not healthy. Trying to control the outcome of every situation is not healthy. You need to understand that stability is godly. It's good to have stability. That God is consistent. He is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So God's not against consistency. But yet God is aware that there are many things in this life that will not be consistent because they are not Him. If it is not godly, if it is not good, if it is not holy, if it is not righteous, if it is not loving, merciful, patient, kind, forgiving, etc., 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 it shouldn't be consistent in your life. And so many times we are trying to control the outcome of everything in our lives. We do not walk by faith. We walk by fear, but we let fear control our lives. We let fear dictate everything that we do. We try to be strong and have a hard character and say, no, I'm in control. I got this. I got this. But in reality, we are holding on to things and trying to keep everything together, not because we just care about them or only because we love them, but because we're afraid to lose them. We're afraid to be without them. We're afraid to be without these things. We're afraid for life to not turn out the way we want it. So we end up making decisions that God did not call us to do. So what is a healthy way of doing this? What is a healthy way of living? A healthy way of living is doing the best that you can without trying to control the best of what others can do. What I mean by that is that if you're in a relationship with someone, let's say a friendship, or maybe you're dating a guy, you're dating a girl, you're in a relationship with them. See, you can communicate to them how you feel loved. You can communicate to them what you would like for them to do to be able to do their part in the relationship. You can communicate with them. Nothing wrong with communication, honesty, and transparency. But you can't force them. You can't force people to do things. You can only control what you do. You can only control your actions. You are the only one that can control yourself. The only thing that you can control is yourself. You cannot control your friends. You can't control your parents. You can't control your siblings. You can't control your spouse. You can't control your boyfriend or your girlfriend. The only one that you are in control of is yourself. And what we can do is communicate to those people in our lives and tell them what is going on, what we feel needs to be fixed, what needs to be confronted, what needs to be spoken about, what needs to be adjusted. But yet when we start behaving in a certain way to force people's hands, to force change, we're not walking in love. We're not walking in faith. We are living in pride and we're living in fear. If you have to give somebody the silent treatment, if you feel that it is healthy and right to give someone the silent treatment in order for them to change, in order for them to become something, or in order for them to do what you want them to do, number one, you are in the wrong manipulating people. You are depriving people of your kindness and love because you're not getting things the way you want. There's a difference between someone that is abusing you and someone that is just not in agreement with you. If you have a disagreement with someone, that's normal in any dynamic of relationship. That is normal. And if you feel that you have to give someone the silent treatment, or that you have to scream at someone or abuse them in some way to get to turn things into your favor, you're just in the wrong. You're in the wrong. That's just the truth. And the second thing is, if you have to go to that extent anyways, if you have to be that kind of person, if you have to scream at someone or give someone the silent treatment or just do some other toxic thing just for someone to change, that person is not someone that actually cares about you anyways. That's just the truth. Because someone that cares about you is willing to hear you out and make the changes, right? But you also have to check yourself and be accountable and say, am I being kind? Am I being a good person? Am I being loving? Am I being fair with what I'm asking for? Am I actually speaking out of my true heart, out of what I really feel, and something that's healthy, something that is required? Or am I just milking it? Am I just trying to make everything work out the way I want it? Am I trying to make this girl, this guy, the person that I dream of them to be? Am I trying to make my family the dream family? Am I trying to make my life the dream life? Am I trying to make life perfect? And I'm trying to be the narrator. I'm trying to be the artist. I'm trying to be the author of my life. And everyone else is just a character in my story. You're living in a very narcissistic life thinking that way. And I know we're all saying narcissist right now in the times that we're living in. Everyone's a TikTok therapist nowadays. I'm not a therapist. I'm someone that's just gone through a lot of highs and lows, and I want to share with you something that I've experienced and I've been through, because I've tried to keep relationships alive that they didn't have a chance. I did my best to hold on to things that were not for me. I went through harder seasons in my life because I was too prideful and too afraid to give God control. Sometimes we struggle to trust in God because we don't know God. We just don't know God. And number two, we struggle because we just don't believe in what God is calling us to do. Now, fear and doubt are not bad things. Like I said in the beginning, I used to believe that fear was the absence of faith. I used to believe that fear was the absence of having trust in God. But that's not true. The title of this video is Do It Afraid. Believe while you are afraid. But what I wanted to first explain to all of us here in this moment is that fear can often lead us to be control freaks. Fear can lead us to be control freaks. Fear can lead us to be people that try to hold on to the steering wheel and try to control the results and outcome of everything. And I told you that fear can come from many places. And one of the biggest ones, not the only way that we can develop fear, but we lived a life of hardships where a lot of things didn't work out great. We saw divorce, we saw division, we saw breakups, we saw things not work out well. But let me tell you something. How many of those things that didn't work out in your life, that didn't work out in your family's life, that didn't work out in your friendship life, that didn't work out in other places in your life, how many times those things that didn't work out, they didn't work out because they were not doing it God's way? Now, I'm not saying that everything that's bad and everything that didn't go well in your life was because they didn't do it God's way. Because sometimes people just get fired. Sometimes people are just, sometimes breakups happen. I get that. But I'm saying, how many times did a marriage not last because they were doing it God's way? I've never heard of that before. Sometimes, and most times, if not all times, I've seen divorce happen is because one or both parties were living a life that was ungodly. They weren't doing it God's way. Certain dynamics, certain relationships, certain ways that you were living were not in God's way. Can we be a little bit honest today and admit that some of our PTSD, our post-traumatic stress disorder, our flashbacks, our hesitations, our bad habits that we've developed, our fears that we've developed didn't necessarily come because life is bad, but more so we were managing life poorly? I'm not saying that's the result of every bad thing in your life, because there are other things that happen in life that are bad and they were out of our control. But how many things didn't go well because they weren't done in God's way? I would go out of my way to say that a lot of them didn't work out. A lot of things don't work out because they're not done in God's way. Faith will often bring a bit of hesitation and doubt and fear, maybe more than a bit, a lot. But if God said it, you got to trust in it. So before I sign off, I want to read this to you. This is a post that I saw on Instagram by a pastor. His name is Simkins. I really hope I said his name right, because not that he would watch this video, but honestly, such a wise man of God. I'm sure he has his defects and all that as a human being, but man, I really think God uses him in such a powerful way. I admire in how he writes, how he's able to just express words, express feelings through words, express what God is doing through words. And I want you to read this. I want you to hear me out when I read this. This is his writing. This is his message. In Luke chapter 5, Jesus, a rabbi, tells Simon, a professional fisherman, Simon Peter, to move into deeper water and cast his nets again to see what he catches. Simon's response is fascinating. Simon doesn't respond. Of course, Jesus, that makes perfect sense. Thanks for the advice. So that's what Simon didn't say. Simon didn't say, of course, Jesus, thanks. That makes perfect sense. Thank you for the advice. But here is how Peter responded. Simon Peter said, Master, we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets again. I'll let the nets down again. I think this is a true and beautiful picture of faith, more often than I tend to recognize or admit. It's raw and messy. It's faith in the midst of uncertainty. It's saying, Jesus, I don't know if this is really going to work, but if you say so, I'll give it a shot. It's the cry of a father who says to Jesus, I do believe, help my unbelief. It's saying, I don't know if loving my neighbor is really going to work, but I'll give it a shot. It's saying, I don't know if living a life of generosity is a better way to live, but I'll give it a shot. It's saying, I don't know if praying for those who wrong me is worthwhile, but I'll give it a shot. Faith often says, I don't see the full picture, but I trust the artist. The phrase put out into the deep from Luke chapter 5 verse 4 uses the Greek word bathyno. I hope I said that right. Bathyno, which literally means to go deeper. In my experience, this is often the innovation of Jesus, to head to deeper waters. The Christian life is often marked by the willingness to move to deeper waters, even if we're unsure of the outcome. In God's kingdom, obedience often precedes understanding. I'll read that once more. In God's kingdom, obedience often precedes understanding. We might not understand it all, but if God made a clear command, not a fuzzy or blurry command, we don't know. If you know God said to do something, if you know God commands it in his word, if you know God tells us to follow it in his word, it's clear. Obedience often precedes understanding. Even if we don't understand it, obedience is above understanding. Sometimes we're invited to act not out of certainty, but out of trust. The truth is, faith often feels like casting nets into empty waters. That's my favorite line here. The truth is, faith often feels like casting nets into empty waters. Jesus tells Peter, cast your nets. Jesus says, cast your nets. Go out into deeper waters. Peter says, I was fishing all night, but by your word, if you say so, I'll do it. And he threw his nets into what he thought was empty waters. And look at what God did. God brought the fish in, Faith isn't the absence of doubt. This is a continuation. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's moving forward despite it. Here's something I wish I had learned much earlier. These are things that can coexist. They can work at the same time. They can exist at the same time. Not necessarily work, but they can exist at the same time. Faith and doubt can coexist. Confidence and having questions can coexist. Progress and having obstacles in the midst of progress is something that can coexist. Having grief and joy can coexist. Having excitement and trepidation can coexist. Disagreement and kindness can coexist. You can disagree with someone, but still be kind to them. They can coexist. Conviction and curiosity can coexist. You can feel convicted by something, but still want to learn and still try to see why you feel that conviction. Why, it's not, of course, if you feel convicted, let it lead you. But also, it's not bad to say, why? I want to know why, and study more and learn why. It's good that you can have both. Many people say that if you keep questioning things, it's just because you don't believe it or don't receive it. That's not true. You can receive it, but you want to understand it. So you can have both conviction and curiosity. And these are the final words that he has here. When we find ourselves struggling to fully believe, when we can't see the entire path and doubt. Let me read that again. I'm reading it wrong. When we find ourselves struggling to fully believe, when we can't see the entire path and doubt we ever will, that is the perfect time to trust Jesus and cast the nets out anyway. Personally, I want to practice a lot more if you say so, faith. And the good news is this: Jesus doesn't just call us to deeper waters. He meets us there. I love that. Jesus will meet you in those waters. Whatever God is calling you to, whatever Jesus is calling you to. I know it might be hard. I know it might be scary. I know marriage can be scary. I know a new job can be scary. I know venturing out into a deeper level of service in your ministry can be scary. I know that asking for forgiveness can be scary. I know that trying to forgive someone that hurt you can be scary. I know that there are many things in this life that can be scary. They can make us want to hesitate and stay in the same place. Not just hesitate, but keep us in the same place. But you can feel fear. You can have a moment of hesitation. You can have a bit of a concern and maybe even doubt. But don't let that stop you. You are not a bad believer or a bad Christian because you have felt fear or doubt. But yet you are not doing good in life if you are allowing fear and doubt to hold you back from what God is calling you to do. God is calling you to move forward, not in just a beautiful big assignment and calling, which I'm sure he has for you in some way, but more so to be his child, which isn't easy. To be a follower of Jesus Christ, to pick up our cross, which isn't easy. But like this last quote that was said right now, God, Jesus, doesn't just call us into deeper waters. He meets us there. He'll be there and help you every step of the way. God isn't calling you to do this out of your own strength, on your own. And that's why it's faith, because we're believing and trusting not only in what he said, but that he will be with us to help us along the way. Let go of your desire to control everything. And to do that, you have to let go of your fear. You have to let go of this anxiety that you feel when things aren't going your way. It's easier said than done. But you have to understand that if you don't let people make their own decisions, if you don't let people show you their true colors, if you don't let life become what it needs to be, you're going to live a life where you're trying to control everything. And even if you feel peace for but a moment, it's fabricated. It's fake. You made it. You created it. But those people that might be telling you that they love you and they'll never leave you, what if those people are staying because they're afraid of how you react? What if that boyfriend or that girlfriend is just staying in your life because you just keep begging them to stay and you just keep saying, come on, please stay? But what if that's not really for you? What if you're just trying to hold on because you're afraid of being alone? What if you're trying to hold on to something because you're afraid of not having friends? You're afraid of people not loving you. You have to be guided by God and know when it's time to fight for something, and know that when something is trying to let you go and quit on you. I'm not saying that now faith is let bad things happen. Now faith is let the relationship fall apart, because if it were God, it doesn't take any work. No, faith still takes work. Relationships take work. Having a job takes work. Moving forward takes work. I'm not saying that we don't do anything. I'm not saying, oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Only you take the wheel and that's it. No, we have our part to do. But there's a difference from walking in obedience, walking according to the will of God, investing in our relationships in godly ways, and then trying to manipulate and control the situation by manifesting behaviorisms or threats to persuade the outcome. That's not God. That's not God. In other words, faith isn't easy. Loving people isn't easy. Forgiving people isn't easy. But if you do it God's way, it will flourish if it's from God. Your relationship will flourish if you do it God's way, if that relationship is from God. But if you, for example, start praying and worshiping God, and you start putting boundaries on the flesh, and you start putting God in the center of the relationship, and that friend or that partner or that person in your life starts feeling uncomfortable about it and starts isolating themselves away from you because of those new morals and values that you're living, then that's a sign that it's not from God. But yet, if you have things in your life that are still in your life, but they haven't been tested with God's values, you have to test them. Do it God's way. When you live a godly life according to God's word, it's not easy. But yet everything that is meant for you will remain, and it will flourish, and it will prosper. And everything that is not for you will be removed. But you will never be able to get to the point to realize what is meant to remain and what is meant to be removed from your life until you start living a godly life. Because a godly life will attract godly plans, and a godly life will force God to remove the things that are not his plans. They will remove ungodly things. A godly life will attract godly things, and a godly life will remove ungodly things. Until you live a godly life, trusting in God with faith, obeying his word, you will never really know that what is around you is actually for you. But when you live for God, when you live with God and walk with God, what remains, you will have the confidence that what remains is from God, and that whatever leaves your life and is removed from your life was not even from God in the first place. And that will give you peace. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you received something from it. Hope you subscribe. Hope you listen to the whole thing. Love you guys, and I'll see you all in the next episode.